I'm not a good person. There's really no easy way to say that. I've made terrible choices in my life, and for a long time I didn't care about the consequences. Back in the early 2000s, I was at the absolute worst point in my life. I was constantly getting into trouble. Robbery, fighting, grand theft auto, anything illegal you can think of. But one night something happened that scared me more than anything else ever had before. At that time I had a twisted routine. Every few days I would drive to some small forgotten town in the middle of nowhere. America is full of places like that. Tiny towns where everyone goes to sleep early and nobody expects danger. I would spend hours driving around looking for elderly couples living alone. They had to look weak and vulnerable. Once I picked my target, I waited until it got dark enough. Around 9 at night was perfect. I would rush up to their door pretending to panic. I'd tell them my wife was in the hospital about to give birth and my car had broken down nearby. I'd beg to use their phone. Almost every single time they let me inside without hesitation. Then I'd tie them up and rob the house. I never planned on hurting anyone. I just wanted money and valuables. At least that's what I told myself. One night, I found a house sitting completely alone on a road surrounded by woods. There weren't any nearby neighbors. I thought it was perfect. If something went wrong, I could escape through the forest. I walked up to the front door and started yelling for help. An old woman answered the door. The first thing that felt wrong was her expression. She didn't look worried or confused. She smiled at me like she already knew something I didn't. She grabbed my shoulder and calmly invited me inside. I stepped into the living room and instantly froze when I saw a massive man walk into the room holding a hunting rifle. He wasn't old either. He looked maybe 30 years old. Huge beard. Huge body. Easily over 6 feet tall. That's when panic started creeping into my chest. The old woman told me this was her son and that he'd go check my car. I knew immediately my lie was about to fall apart. Then she started yelling for her husband. An old man limped into the room staring at me without saying a word. That's when I noticed the smell in the house. It was horrible. Not dirty house horrible. Something worse. Something rotten. Something that made every instinct in my body scream at me to get out. I slowly started moving toward the front door. The old man mirrored every movement I made. The woman kept stepping closer, asking why I was leaving. I lied and said I forgot something in my car. The second I got close enough to the door, I bolted. The old man tried grabbing me, but I slipped away and sprinted outside. I ran to my car and immediately realized all 4 tires had been slashed. My heart dropped. From inside the house, I heard yelling that I couldn't have gone far. I didn't know what else to do, so I ran straight into the woods behind the house. I kept running until I couldn't breathe anymore. Then I hid behind a giant tree trying to stay completely silent. A few seconds later, I heard heavy footsteps coming toward me. Slowly getting louder. Closer. Closer. Then I saw him. The woman's son walked right past me carrying the rifle. He was so close I could hear him breathing. If I moved even an inch, he would have seen me. Somehow he kept walking without noticing me, hidden beside the tree. I stayed frozen until he disappeared into the darkness. Then I crawled back through the woods toward the road. I could see the old woman standing in the house window staring toward the forest like she knew I was still nearby. I quietly got back to my car and rolled it down the road as far as possible before the ruined tires completely gave out. Then I abandoned it and ran all the way back toward town. Eventually, I found help and got the car towed away. I never told the police what happened. I didn't want anyone digging into my own crimes. But to this day, I still believe whatever those people were doing inside that house was far more terrifying than anything I had ever done. Years later, I worked overnight security at a giant strip mall. At first, the job felt perfect. I'm naturally a night person and the job was incredibly quiet. But eventually the boredom started eating at me. One night while checking security cameras, I noticed one of the back entrances had a blind spot with no camera coverage. That discovery changed everything. I started mapping out every blind spot in the entire building. Every hidden corner. Every angle the cameras couldn't see. Then I started stealing. At first it was little things. Hats. Shirts. Cheap shoes. But eventually it turned into expensive sneakers and electronics. I convinced myself I was smarter than everyone because nobody ever caught me. Then strange things started happening. One night while doing my rounds, I heard children laughing inside one of the stores. I searched everywhere with my flashlight, but nobody was there. The laughter echoed all around me. I could hear whispering too, but couldn't make out the words. I ran back to the security office and checked the cameras. There was nothing on the footage except me waving my flashlight around like a lunatic. A few nights later it happened again. I was inside the store stealing a pair of Vans when something rushed past me. Then the laughter started again. I saw a small dark figure at the end of one aisle. It waved at me before disappearing. Then I heard a voice clearly whisper my full name. I completely lost it. I sprinted back to the office shaking uncontrollably. I reviewed every camera angle over and over again, but there was never anyone there besides me. The next morning my supervisor watched the footage and thought I had lost my mind. She also noticed the stolen shoes in my office and accused me of theft. I quit on the spot because I was terrified they'd investigate me further. To this day, I still don't know what happened in that mall. Maybe stress finally broke my brain. Maybe someone was messing with me. But I know what I heard. And I know whatever whispered my name was real. The third story happened during college. I was extremely awkward and spent most of my time alone. Then I got paired with a girl named Emily for a class presentation. She was kind. Easy to talk to. For the first time in years, I actually liked someone. After we exchanged numbers, I started looking her up online. First Instagram. Then Snapchat. Then every social media account I could find. I became obsessed with learning everything about her. Eventually, I figured out roughly where she lived. One night, I drove past her house just to see it. Then I kept doing it. Again and again. I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone because I stayed in my car. But deep down I knew I was becoming a stalker. One night, I noticed movement behind her upstairs window. Someone was watching me from inside the house. I panicked and sped away. The next day during class, Emily casually mentioned that someone had been stalking her recently. My stomach dropped instantly. I stopped driving by her house after that. But then strange things started happening to me. At night, I'd hear movement outside my windows. Soft scratching sounds against the glass. Sometimes I'd see shapes standing behind the blinds. It felt like someone was circling my house watching me. I became paranoid. I stopped going to class. I barely left my room. Every sound terrified me. Then Emily texted asking if I was okay. My fear completely took over and I sent her a message begging her to stop sending people to my house. Her response came slowly. She seemed genuinely confused. That's when I realized she might have had absolutely nothing to do with what was happening to me. That same night my doorbell rang. I walked downstairs in total darkness and stood near the front door listening. Then a voice from outside calmly told me to open the door. I said I didn't order anything. The voice immediately became aggressive. It repeated the command louder this time. Open the door. I backed away silently and locked myself in my bedroom while the person outside spammed the doorbell over and over again. Eventually, it stopped. I went to stay with my parents for almost a week. When I finally returned home, the strange activity had stopped completely. I never found out who was outside my house that night. Maybe it was Emily's family. Maybe it was someone else entirely. But whatever happened gave me a terrifying taste of my own behavior. And after that, I never stalked anyone again.